Hey everyone, the video we have all been waiting for. This video is a clear depiction of my journey and my coming to terms with so many different things in my life and learning to understand the different functionalities and the different personalities, just everything as a whole. So as you listen, as you watch, just keep in mind that it can get a bit emotional. It can get a bit, hopefully not triggering, but I'm sure it's going to resonate with quite a few people. So without further ado, guys, I'm just going to get into it with you. Here is my story. I never knew I was codependent. Needless to say, I never knew what narcissism was. I never knew that people like this actually existed. I mean, I've heard of psychopaths, and maybe even sociopaths, but narcissist, really? I never understood. How could you understand something you didn't know, right? I learned about narcissism when I was going to therapy, and I found out about my codependency issues and how easily narcissists attract people who are codependent. I was completely astounded at the idea that I endured narcissistic abuse. And when it was brought up to me and everything was explained to me, I was like, wait a minute, I've gone through this before. I have actually experienced this before. Because in other relationships, I dated people who were, in a way, kind of cocky in their own sense, kind of not conceited maybe, but where they put up this big level of confidence. I thought, what I perceived as confidence. And in some ways, yeah, it was a bit intimidating for me because I had confidence, but not nearly as much as these people had. So when I met someone who seemed kind of like me, and by me, I mean kind of like really humble in a way, like I never was the type to use my looks and use what I knew people found appealing as a tool to try to win people over or try to just make people praise me. I mean, when I met someone that I felt like my soul resonated with them, and they seemed very just chilled, laid back, not the type of person that was overly confident, but had a little something to hold on to. You can imagine when I met someone like that, I was just ecstatic because I was like, wow, I finally met someone who kind of in a way reminds me of me and makes me really feel good about myself. The other guys that I dated made me feel good, but it was more so to receive that in return. And it was to kind of, I guess they thought they had maybe a trophy or, like I was like all looks and no brain in a sense. And the reality is I'm a very smart person, I have my blonde moments, but I'm a really smart person. And their take of it was I have a trophy. I have a good looking woman who a lot of guys would probably try to get at. But when I met someone who was just, he wasn't overly like, he wasn't conceited. He wasn't the type of person. In fact, he was under conceited. He gave me the impression that he knew what he had to offer, but he wasn't the type of person that would just, I'm all good looking, I'm great looking. And in fact, there were times where he would put himself down. And that was the part of me that I resonated with him on that. But I I didn't appreciate that because I did not feel that he needed to put himself down. I felt like, I understood because he had low self-esteem. And I know what it is to have low self-esteem. That was actually what brought me to him even more, because of the fact that, not because he didn't really see himself in a higher light, but because of the fact that he didn't see what I saw. And I wanted to show him what it was that I saw. I saw someone who just really must have gone through so much and had been so deeply wounded that he just gave up on himself. And I did not want to be a savior, but I wanted to get him to realize that, there's more to it, and he has it. He just needs to know how to use it. And my other relationships, they were just, they were just blatant assholes. They were just, show-offs. And my codependency must have really been thick, because I still stayed after everything. I stayed after the verbal abuse, physical abuse, you name it, I stayed, because I was just so embedded in my low self-esteem that I just couldn't see through it. I part of me, I guess, refused to see through it. So when you meet someone who thinks kind of in the same way as you do about yourself, it's kind of like, wow, I met my match. I met someone who actually is thinking what I'm thinking about myself, even though they don't know that. But I'm thinking the same exact thing about myself, and I don't understand why. And amazingly enough, those other relationships, I endured narcissistic abuse and I never realized it. I just, you end a relationship, it happens, and then you move on, and then, you just suppress. And that's the, thing with codependency. But I come to realize that my last relationship was the catalyst. Well, you guys already know the whole story of boy meets girl or girl meets boy. You put yourself in whichever position it is in that story. But, I met him in a time of my life where I had a newfound independence. And because being codependent does not only mean being codependent in relationships, you can be codependent relying on other people for other aspects of your life. And it just felt really good to have my newfound independence and be able to just maybe start my life over again and possibly meet someone that, would possibly share it with me. And meeting him was it was great. I mean, we spoke a few times, we met online, we spoke a few times, and the fact that he was not far, he was within a very close range. There was that level of convenience, so meeting was, it was pretty laid back. It was cool. We had a great conversation. We talked for hours. And it was clear that there was chemistry. There was a spark, he was attracted, I was attracted. And we managed to grow into that pattern over time, like everybody does, and getting to know one another and becoming accustomed with one another. And there were certain quirks, certain qualities that I would say I noticed, but it wasn't anything I didn't think I could handle. Like I had noticed, attitude. It's a knack for me, people with attitude. But it wasn't anything serious to the point where I was like, okay, this guy is going to have a nasty attitude. No, I was just like, listen, you give them kindness. I always felt that you can turn a hard heart soft, if you just apply your heart to it. And so I wasn't really worried about that. But, in dealing with him, I was very patient with him. I was very, I really liked him a lot. Like I really wanted to get to know him more, and I really wanted to see where it could go. So I was extremely patient. He was extremely guarded. He did explain some things about his past, and it led me to understand why he was guarded. So that was one of the reasons why I was so patient. And of course, over time, certain things did pop up that were kind of questionable for me. But at the end of the day, I was still willing to work through it and willing to, compromise. That's what you do. I always believed compromise was something that was a very key point in a relationship. And as much as I would give it, I would expect it in return. Compromise was a bit hard for him, but, you've been dealing with someone who's been single for so long. It's, I guess that autonomy really just does kick in. And at this time, I'm not thinking anything remotely negative. I'm not thinking anything crazy. I'm just, trying to flow with it. Even though this was uncharted, it was new territory for me. I'm not saying I'm used to men just being like fully surrendering to me, but at the same time, it's like when you're dealing with someone who's extremely guarded, it's like, holy shit, this is a lot of work. Like, you have to put in a lot of work, but it's usually worth it in the end. People are guarded for a lot of reasons, and usually, it's okay because, you just don't want to endure or experience something that you have gone through before. So I totally get it, and I totally got it. I totally understood. And as much as I was understanding and I was patient, it had become frustrating because it's like when you are dealing with someone who is guarded, you are dealing with ghosts of, so many things that have absolutely nothing to do with you. But, and at this point, people would generally just say, you know what, this is just too much. I'm not going to do it, and give up, And I didn't give up. I was steady in the course, and I was doing what I had to do. And during that time, we had a couple of bumps in the road. We had to, become more accustomed to one another because we are two different people, and we have experienced two separate lives. So, along the lines, there were a few things that we had to address and take care of. And I had to address with him that, if your intention is to be in a relationship, you have to be compromising. You have to be more forthcoming. You have to be a bit more giving. I understand guardedness, but there is a complete difference between being guarded and being completely selfish. And, I guess that was something that he wasn't too familiar with. So it did become a bit problematic, but we managed to work through it. And, moving fast forwarding, we managed to establish a commitment that, that was bonded. And it, it took a while. It took a long while. We're talking about 6-7 months to just establish that we are in a committed relationship. But I was so already in deep, and I was already, embedded in our bond that I wasn't trying to give up. I wasn't trying to abandon ship because, when the going gets tough, you abandon. No, it doesn't work that way. You fight for what you want. You do whatever is necessary to have what it is you want. And everything had seemed great. Everything was fine. And of course, certain situations arise and things do happen. There are going to be illusions that clearly are trying to test you and your relationship. And the things that were testing our relationship were clearly triggering for him. Apparently, he had not healed any kind of issues or any kind of traumas he's had. So because he had not done that, and because he had not confronted how he has felt about these particular types of trauma, I was the punching bag of those issues. And it was all taken out on me in that I looked like the person, I was compared to the person or the people that have inflicted trauma in his life. So needless to say, it was a very long and rough road. I had to prove and show and tell, and just pretty much the relationship it went from utter bliss to constant arguments and pettiness and toxicity and insecurities, and it doubled over into disrespect and, you know, being infantile and acting just not even recognizing the person that you once fell in love with, you know. And clearly someone who is codependent but doesn't know she's codependent is already internally insecure. So when things started to turn sideways, my insecurities grew and my need for validation grew, and it just seemed like I was doing all of this work in futility. I was not going to get what I wanted, which was everything just going back to the way it was, the way it used to be. You know, the romance, the love, the intimacy, I mean, the trust. And of course, that can't happen when you have someone who is clearly thinking that you're doing something that you're not doing, clearly thinking that you're lying to them, that you have been unfaithful, that you have been deceptive, that you have been a liar. I mean, I had been called a fucking liar to my face. And yet, everything that they thought about me was and could not have been more wrong. And everything that they clearly were wrong about, well, I'm one who keeps proof of everything. So we go from I love yous and, you know, just being comfortable about being around each other and being in our element and enjoying life and finally being happy, finally having peace, to bitterness, coldness, attitudes. I, you know, get an attitude if I call on the phone and say, I can't, wait, I couldn't hear what you're saying. Can you repeat that? What, you can't fucking hear me? It's just like, what? Like, wait, what? I get, you know, I mean, I get side-eyed. I get looked at like I'm a whore because that's how I felt. I felt like this person does not trust me. This person thinks I got over on them. This person thinks all of these things about me, and I have not done anything. I hadn't done anything but love them, try to prove to them that I'm here and I am willing to do and be anything that you want me to do and be, just so we can be happy. And you know, I'd let the nastiness just go by, and I'd let the bitterness and the rudeness just go by. But there were times that I just could not take it. There were times where I worked 2 jobs. I worked 80 hours a week, and in between those 2 jobs, I would take time to call him and, you know, just talk to him. And when you get to a point that you don't even want to call the person, you don't even want to call them because you are just, you don't want to argue. You don't want to fight. You don't want to do any of those things. It's just like, I don't even want to talk to this person right now because I don't even know what kind of an attitude they're going to have today. I don't even know what the problem is. When you go from being enamored when you see their picture pop up on your phone and they call you, to let me brace myself because I don't even know what today's conversation is going to be about. When you go from feeling great and happy to feeling guilty for something you did not do because they harp it on you so much. They harp so much on you, and it's like, oh my God, what the hell is it that you think I did? And they just continuously act that way. They continuously give you the nastiness and it's the nastiness, the rudeness. That's the part that got me. It got me to the point where I would just sit there and be like, do I even want to continue? Then you get that you have high expectations. You get, when you're asking for compromise, that's just a little too much. You know, you just so focused on controlling the relationship. That's all you want is control. You want control. You want control. You are asking for some decency and some respect. You want control. That's equivalent to that. You want some time with the person. And yeah, you feel some kind of way because the person is willing to sacrifice time with you to be with other people. You want control. Well, I worked 80 hours a week and I only really got 1 day a week with the person that I was in love with, but I wanted control. And it's any little thing that you point out, such as inconsistencies, certain things that are said, certain things that are done, certain things don't match up. And you get met with rage, you get met with frustration, you get met with blame. And I don't even know how the hell blame fits into there, but it is what it is. When certain things just don't seem right, certain things don't look right, certain things are just not making sense to you, and you're saying certain things about it, you know, because you've already spent most of your relationship walking on eggshells for God knows what reason. You already spent it sitting there saying to yourself, I don't want to tip the boat over. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to feel. I don't know how to react, because if I do, I'm afraid that I'm going to get this person angry. I'm afraid this person's going to go and just say something that's really going to be hurtful. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to lose this person. I mean, I know that they feel this way, even though they shouldn't feel this way. They see things a certain way, even though they shouldn't see things this way. But I love them so much. And all I want to do is prove to them. All I want to do is show them. All I want to do is give to them what they've never experienced before, what they've never had before. That's all I want to do. I just want to have normality. I just want peace and I just want time. That's it. Is that too much to ask? Of course it is. Of course it's too much, because you have high expectations, because no matter what you say, no matter what you do, there's always going to be a comparison. There's always going to be something wrong. There's always going to be something there that is going to always tip that boat over. And even if you don't tip it over, they will. And when, of course, you decide that you don't care to walk over eggshells anymore, because now it's getting to the point that you got to say something. You got to open your mouth. You have to be, you got to be a little bit forceful. You got to just come out with it. Something's wrong with you. I got asked if I was bipolar. If I was bipolar. I was so embedded in this shit that I have myself thinking that I was fucking borderline personality disorder. I was thinking to myself, maybe I am. Am I the problem? Am I the toxic one? Am I the reason why you're acting this way? Am I the reason that this is all toxic? Am I the reason? Am I the reason? Am I the fucking reason? And I'm sitting there saying to myself, you're going to lose him. You're going to lose him, Erica, because you're fucked up. Erica, you're the problem. You have insecurities. What's your problem, Erica? What's your problem, Erica? What's your problem, Erica? What's your problem, Erica? Never mind the fact that this shit was just completely toxic ever since that shit went down. No, what is your problem, Erica? And throughout the course of the relationship, you know, I buy him things. But it wasn't to like, oh, you know, make him accept me or, you know, show me you love me. No. I got him things because I was genuinely interested in the things that he likes to do. I was interested in the things that he, you know, he liked to get himself in. He liked art. So I bought him markers, you know, the kind of markers he wanted. I always paid attention to those things, the things that he liked. I paid attention to a lot of things, you know, if he needed something, If I can get it, I would get it for him. But it felt good because I always just wanted him to, I wanted to see him smile. I wanted to see him happy. And the things that I got him were based on a lot of the things that I would either overhear or hear him talking about. And to surprise him with these things, it meant a lot to me. It felt good for, to me that I would be able to do that. And showing him, I listen, see, and look, I'm getting this for you because I know you really want it. And everything that I got him, I would just, I get it from here, from my heart, because I knew that he would really enjoy it. I knew that he would really, he'd appreciate it. Someone who tells you, I never asked you to give me any of these things. I never asked you to do any of this. I never asked is someone who would not appreciate anything that you do for them. So bear that in mind, guys, when you, if you're dealing with someone who tells you something like that. The fights got worse. The bitterness got worse. The pettiness got worse. And it just got more and more toxic. I was more and more feeling below myself, beneath myself. And it got to the point where he just started to pull away. He didn't care. It didn't matter. Didn't matter what I said. Didn't matter what was done. Nothing mattered. I noticed there was a big wedge between us. I tried to bridge that gap and it wasn't working. And well, that's when the day that the final discard came.